All right, welcome back, class. Today we're going to continue on our discussion of the new nation while we discuss the presidency of Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was voted in as our third president of the United States, and he believed in what was called this economic idea of laissez-faire. And remember, Jefferson and Hamilton were different. Jefferson's a Democratic Republican, and they believe that the government needs to be kind of taken out of things and can do very little as far as the national government was concerned. And so this idea of laissez-faire stated that a government should not interfere, or should interfere as little as possible, in the nation's economy. And so what he did to do that is he did several things. He cut the federal budget, so that meant that the country was not spending as much money. He reduces the size of the Army and the Navy, so he takes people out of the Army and the Navy to make it smaller so we don't have to pay as much. He repeals the whiskey tax, which for the people in Pennsylvania we're quite happy about, but that now doesn't allow income into our country. And he allowed the Sedition Act to expire, and that was that act that was passed by John Adams that said that people couldn't say bad things about the government. And so Jefferson kind of takes it and is like, no, the government's going to stay out of this stuff. States can make decisions about what they want to do, but the national government is going to stay away. Now, jumping back for a quick second, before Jefferson took office, the Federalists passed what was called the Judiciary Act of 1801. And this was done quickly to try to push the agenda of the Federalists. And what it did is it increased the number of federal judges, so more judges were out there. John Marshall was appointed as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, replacing John Jay. And the Judiciary Act of 1801 helped to establish what was called judicial review, or allowing the Supreme Court to determine if laws that were passed by Congress and actions of the executive branch to decide if they were constitutional or unconstitutional. And this Judiciary Act of 1801 made the federal government more powerful. Well, another thing that was done is that one of the judges that was elected at the time was William Marbury. William Marbury was actually appointed as a judge the night before Jefferson took office, so the last night that John Adams was president. He puts Marbury as a new federal judge. Well, Jefferson felt like that was going behind his back and doing something against what he had the right to do. And so Thomas Jefferson orders his Secretary of the State, James Madison at that time, to not confirm Marbury as a judge, basically not give him the paperwork saying that he had a job. Well, needless to say, Marbury was not very happy, and he sued James Madison. And so because this was a case against a federal worker, it goes to the United States Supreme Court. Well, long story short, Marbury is going to lose this case, but it goes back to instituting that idea of judicial review where the Supreme Court can decide if things that the president does or the executive branch or the legislative branch does, whether or not they're constitutional or not. Well, we were expanding to our limits of the territory at the time. And if you look at this map over here, you can see this light green area that I'm drawing around right here. That at the time was the United States. And the American farmers were needing some help. They wanted to trade. They wanted to get their crops. They wanted to sell them overseas. And Thomas Jefferson saw an opportunity. And that opportunity was to purchase this land in the dark green. Right now, France was having some problems with a slave revolt going on in the Caribbean, and they needed to make some money and to lessen their amount of land they had throughout the country. And so Jefferson offers to purchase what's known as the Louisiana Purchase, that dark green area on the map, from France. He offers to purchase the city of New Orleans for $10 million. And the reason he wants the city of New Orleans is because it's at the end of the Mississippi River, and it can help regulate the trade because they could have control of the Mississippi. Well, because of that slave revolt, France is like, you know what? We're not going to give you New Orleans for $10 million, but we'll give you this whole dark green area, which basically covers what you see there up to the Rocky Mountains. We'll give that to you, plus New Orleans, for $15 million. And so by purchasing this land, this gave the United States full control of the Mississippi River and New Orleans. It instantly doubles the size of our country and allows trade to be a lot more regulated for us. This is considered to be Thomas Jefferson's most important accomplishment. But one of the issues that Thomas Jefferson faced with the Louisiana Purchase was this was a big government decision, and the Constitution didn't say that the government could purchase land from other countries. And so this went against his ideas that the government should only be able to do what the Constitution says. But Jefferson decided to go ahead and do this anyway, and it actually worked out quite well for us. Well, now we have all this land, and we need to go figure out what this land is. And so Thomas Jefferson decides that we need to send an expedition out to explore this land. And he chooses Meriwether Lewis to lead this expedition. Meriwether Lewis calls upon his friend William Clark to go with him on this expedition. They round up about 50 other men, which they call the Corps of Discovery, and they get ready to head out from St. Louis. Jefferson says, while you are exploring this area, there's some things I want you to be looking for. First of all, your main goal is to find a water route from St. Louis to the Pacific Ocean. So map the route that you are going by river so we can find our way out there. Also study the geography. Tell us what the land's like out there. Would it be good for farming? Would it be good for whatever? What can we do out there? What does it look like? And let's learn about the Native American tribes that are out there as well, so we can maybe start trading with them and building a better relationship with them. And so you can see on this map here, that red line shows you the path that Lewis and Clark took from St. Louis up the Missouri River all the way to the Rocky Mountains. So they were very good at accomplishing most of the things they needed to do. They were able to just make new scientific discoveries and finding new scientific information. New stories of adventure for the country came out. Everyone wanted to go explore the out west. They were able to claim parts of Oregon also for the United States. But the issue was they were not able to find that water route because there is no water route. Because if we go this line right here, this black dotted line down here, it's called the Continental Divide, and it's at the very peak of the mountains. And what that means is any rivers that flow to the east of the Continental Divide will eventually all empty into the Gulf of Mexico or Atlantic Ocean, and all rivers that flow to the west will empty into the Pacific. And so there is no water route that goes through the mountains. Well, also on the way, they did build up some relationships with the Native Americans. The Native Americans would give them horses, or they would provide them with food and shelter to get them through, because surprisingly, what Americans during the colonial times differed with this is Lewis and Clark and his men treated them as equals. They didn't come in and just try to take over. They were kind, they were compassionate, they were helpful, and they didn't just take it over. So that helped build those relationships. A Native American lady by the name of Sacagawea is going to join Lewis and Clark and helps them by guiding them and interpreting for them. And that also helped build those relationships with the Native Americans. After Lewis and Clark get back, another expedition heads out, and this is led by Zebulon Pike, and it's called Pike's Expedition. It also will leave from St. Louis in 1805. And this one is going to explore the upper Mississippi River, the Arkansas River, the Colorado, and the New Mexico. And today, if you go out to Colorado and the Denver area, you can go up to what is called Pike's Peak, which is named after Zebulon Pike, which is the farthest he went during his expedition. Well, despite all the new changes taking place in America at this time, we are having some issues with shipping items across the ocean. And the U.S. Had to pay a tribute or a bribe to the rulers of the Barbary states. And this was so that their ships would not be attacked. So basically, someone's bribing us to say, hey, give us money, we'll keep your ship safe. If you don't give us money, we're going to attack them. So that was one issue, and Jefferson and the American people were not happy about that. The other thing was Britain and France were amazingly, once again, interfering with our trading overseas. The British were capturing our ships, they were forcing our sailors to work for them. And this was a violation of our neutral rights, the Neutrality Proclamation. There we go. I was finally able to get it out. I apologize. That Washington signed was being violated. And so the United States decides to respond with what's called the Embargo Act of 1807. Now, this was an act that was passed by our Congress because they have to pass these types of deals, and it was approved by Thomas Jefferson. And what this does is this is going to completely stop trade with Great Britain. We're done. We're going to stop our trade. We're going to ban any imports and exports to all foreign countries. We are basically done trading. If you're going to attack our ships and you are going to force us to make a payment to keep us safe, Jefferson just said, no, we're done paying you. We're not going to trade with you. You can't have our items. So in theory, it sounds like a good idea. It's keeping everybody safe. But the issue behind this was that our economy suffered. Okay, we don't have any more trade with foreign countries. So what are we going to do with all the things we used to send them? People are losing out money that they used to get from trading overseas. Our economy falls apart. We begin to get a depression in our country, which is a time when economic growth is at a standstill. People are losing jobs, and there's a high rate of unemployment, so people are not working. This was a political cartoon from the Embargo Act. And it shows here a turtle biting a man in the posterior region, and it talks about how he nicks him, and oh, this is cursed, oh, grab me. Okay, and the funny thing about the turtle's name is oh, grab me. It's basically not allowing the sugar to be traded with the British. The turtle's stopping them, which the turtle represents government. Is the turtle's name, oh, grab me, if you look at it backwards, spells embargo, and that's how they kind of got their little shot into the government. And this was a political cartoon that is against the Embargo Act, and most Americans were against it. This is a look at our finances in the United States at this time and what happened with the Embargo Act of 1807. So you can see that from 1804 up until the Embargo Act was passed in 1807, that our economy, our value of exports is going up. So we're exporting more and we're making a lot more money. Jefferson had 128 out of 48 people supporting him in Congress in 1804 when he was elected. He asks for the embargo and gets it to pass by a vote of 82 to 45. And then once the embargo is passed, you'll notice we go from $108 million exporting. Now we're down to $22 million in exports. Okay? And so the country lost a lot of money. And then you can look from 1809 to 1808 to 1809 to 1810, we begin to increase our money. But the main reason is because Congress is going to react to this loss of money from 1807 to 1808, and they vote 82 to 35 to get rid of the Embargo Act. So that fixes our economy up. So guys, that is all I have for you today. What you need to make sure is that you have answered on your guided reading notes questions 19 through 28. So if you're keeping up with our class so far, you have answered the first 28 questions, and you are almost 3/4 of the way done with your guided reading notes. So we will talk some more about the Louisiana Purchase and Thomas Jefferson as president. Don't forget, we will be going back to talk about Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr and the infamous duel that they had. So guys, keep working hard, keep getting this stuff done, and I will see you in class next time.